It was the 37th annual cultural festival at Hozumino High School, and all the students were busy getting ready for the event. Sueharu walked up to Tetsuhiko, who asked if everything was set. They bumped fists, pumped and ready for their performance later on. While walking down the hallway, they ran into Mitsuru, who suddenly said he was worried about Sueharu. He didn't understand why Mitsuru would say something like that so out of the blue. Mitsuru warned him that he might end up crying from the shock of what was going to happen that day. Sueharu responded that he should be the one saying that to Mitsuru instead. Tetsuhiko actually thought Sueharu's whole revenge plan was kind of ridiculous. It was just an emotional outlet, nothing more. Still, he could understand where Sueharu was coming from. After all, a first love feels like a curse, and he got why Sueharu wanted to get even. So Tetsuhiko gave him a few words of encouragement to help him win. At that point, Sueharu was waiting for his turn to go on stage. Kuroha showed up in costume and asked for his opinion on her look. He told her she looked super cute, which immediately made her blush hard. Not long after, Guno suddenly barged in and attacked Sueharu. Guno's friend said his heart hurt way more now that he saw Sueharu getting closer to Kuroha. While Sueharu was glancing around the area, Tetsuhiko casually mentioned that Shirakusa's group wouldn't be performing anytime soon. Sueharu seemed surprised and insisted he wasn't looking for Shirakusa. That's when Tetsuhiko pointed out that someone was waiting to see Sueharu, gesturing toward a person standing by the door, waving at him. Sueharu had no clue who the person was, but he went over to meet them on the stairs. When he asked who it was, the person greeted him with a cheerful "Su," and just like that, Sueharu realized who it was. It was Shiru, his childhood friend. Shiru was thrilled that Sueharu still remembered her. As Sueharu tried to move closer, Shiru stopped him. To her surprise, Sueharu actually looked really happy to see her, even though she had been worried he might feel awkward running into her again. Shiru admitted she had been afraid Sueharu might have forgotten about her or even resented her since he quit acting and never came to see her again. But Sueharu reassured her that wasn't the case at all. A lot had happened since then. He apologized, especially because he had once promised he would play the lead role in the story she wrote. Shiru was touched that Sueharu still remembered that promise. It even brought tears to her eyes. Sueharu asked how she had been doing and whether she was still in school. Shiru explained that after they lost touch, she gradually started to get back on her feet. Ever since then, she had made up her mind to get stronger. She studied hard, got into sports to overcome her weaknesses, and most importantly, kept writing stories. 2 years ago, her work finally got recognized. Sueharu was genuinely happy for her. That meant Shiru had officially debuted as a novelist. Shiru said she had always wanted to catch up to Sueharu. She wanted him to see her, to acknowledge her. So she tried everything she could to become someone beautiful in his eyes. Then she stepped forward and took off her cap to show her face to Sueharu. And that was when the truth hit him. His childhood friend Shiru was actually Shirakusa. Shirakusa explained that she really was Shiru. When her dad used to call her Shiro, Sueharu misheard it and started calling her Sharu instead. She confessed that she had missed Sueharu terribly. She also shared that she had won the Akutami Award and now had a story worthy of him as the lead actor. She asked if she had become beautiful now, especially since she used to be mistaken for a boy. She had worked really hard and even her photo had made it into a magazine. But deep down, Shirakusa admitted she felt sad and frustrated seeing how close Sueharu had gotten to Kuroha. Sueharu apologized for not realizing who Shiru really was all this time, but Shirakusa felt happy just knowing that Sueharu still remembered their promise. She asked if it was okay for her to start calling him Su again, and also asked him to stop calling her Shiru now that he knew she was a girl all along. Shirakusa asked Sueharu to start calling her Shiro because she always felt uneasy whenever he called Kuroha Kuro. Sueharu agreed and then asked her why she brought it up. Shirakusa admitted that she hadn't realized how complicated things had been for him after he stopped being a child actor. She confessed that she used to blame him for everything and regretted how she acted back then. That was why she decided to tell him this now, especially since today felt like Sueharu's comeback day. Sueharu told her to wait for him. He planned to bring his acting skills into the story she wrote, and he was confident it would be a hit. Hearing that, Shirakusa was genuinely moved. It had been a long time since anyone had said something like that to her. As she walked down the stairs afterward, she was startled to find Kuroha waiting for her. Kuroha said she had already figured out that the kid in the photo was Shirakusa. Shirakusa responded by saying that from now on, Sueharu would be calling her Shiro. But Kuroha wasn't impressed. She said that didn't mean anything in terms of winning or losing, and if Shirakusa thought she had already won just because of that, then her thinking was way too shallow. Sueharu, still in shock from realizing that Shirakusa was actually his childhood friend, was suddenly approached by Kuroha. who asked him to walk around the festival with her. She casually remarked that she was Kuro and Shirakusa was Shiro, then asked why she was being painted as the bad guy in all of this. Shuei Haru jokingly asked if maybe she was jealous, but Kuroha brushed it off. She reminded him that technically they were dating, and she didn't have any interest in entertaining someone like Shirakusa, who she called a loser. When he laughed at how annoyed Kuroha looked, he guessed that maybe she only acted like this in front of him to get his attention. Embarrassed, Kuroha turned away and couldn't even look at him. Shuei Haru was surprised, considering she had said way more embarrassing things before. Kuroha said she just wasn't ready to be hit with something like that out of the blue. He apologized and promised not to say anything else that would make her panic like that again. After that, Shuei Haru walked around the festival with Kuroha. They watched performances, played goldfish scooping, and grabbed some udon. Kuroha mentioned that the closing ceremony was coming up soon and it would soon be Shuei Haru's turn. She admitted that she didn't know what kind of revenge plan he had in mind, but she wanted him to know one thing: she didn't want to see him getting into another fight. Still, if he was going to face things with optimism and passion, then she wanted to support him. All she really wanted was for him to act freely, without being held back by anything. Suddenly, Kuroha slapped him gently, not out of anger, but as a symbolic gesture. From that moment on, their relationship had been reset. So whatever Shuei Haru decided to do next, it would no longer involve her. Even if he ended up confessing to Shirakusa, Kuroha would be out of the picture. She apologized, then ran off, saying that she would always be watching him. The Love Shooting Festival event had started by then. It was Ryo Hagiwara's turn to take the stage and confess. He said the person he liked was Kane Takenaka. Ever since they worked together on the sports festival committee, he had fallen for her. In front of everyone, he shouted out his feelings and asked her to be his girlfriend. To everyone's surprise, Kane happily accepted his confession. Soon it would be Shuei Haru's turn to go on stage. Tetsuhiko asked if Shuei Haru thought he could win. Shuei Haru said that ever since he was a kid, he had always had this internal switch he flipped whenever it was time to act. At that moment, the host announced that it was time for the last contestant, Mitsuru, to take the stage. Mitsuru greeted the crowd and said he had joined the event to express his feelings to someone special. But since he wasn't great with words, he decided to do it through song and dance instead. Mitsuru said that the song and dance were dedicated to Shirakusa. He performed the theme song from a film he starred in as a child actor, singing and dancing on stage. His performance was so captivating that the audience couldn't help but get excited and start dancing along. Right in the middle of his performance, Shuei Haru suddenly ran onto the stage. Mitsuru was a bit surprised to see him appear out of nowhere, but without missing a beat, Shuei Haru joined in. He sang and danced flawlessly. In that moment, Shuei Haru realized that his fear of performing on stage wasn't really about trauma anymore. What pushed him forward was the desire to do his best in front of the girl he liked. There was no time to dwell on the past. Tetsuhiko watched from the audience, clearly impressed and satisfied by what he saw. Kuroha was so moved that she began to cry. When the music ended, the entire student body erupted into applause, cheering Shuei Haru's name. Mitsuru had already suspected that Shuei Haru was a real star. Kuroha couldn't believe that he had actually pulled it off. Then out of the blue, Mitsuru turned to the students and announced that Shuei Haru, a second-year student from Class 2B and a member of the entertainment club, was the real star. He added that it was time for the main event. Shuei Haru's confession. Shuei Haru then said that he had once liked Shirakusa, so when he heard that she was dating Mitsuru, it came as a huge shock. He admitted that his decision to come back on stage was partly driven by a desire to challenge Mitsuru. He had wanted to get back at both Mitsuru and Shirakusa, but standing there, he realized who really mattered to him. That person was Kuroha. He shouted out that he truly liked Kuroha. His words stunned everyone, especially Shirakusa and Kuroha. Shuei Haru acknowledged that Kuroha had always been by his side. She was the one who had saved him. He apologized for always being a handful, but told her that he needed her. Then, without hesitation, he asked Kuroha to be his girlfriend. To everyone's surprise, Kuroha said she didn't want to. Shuei Haru, clearly confused, asked if she was serious. Kuroha smiled and said that yes, she meant every word. Shuei Haru was completely caught off guard and couldn't understand why Kuroha had turned him down. After the event, Tetsuhiko approached Mitsuru and asked why he intentionally played the role of the bad guy. Tetsuhiko pointed out that the former child actor was Shuei Haru's treasure, so why did Mitsuru use that particular song? Mitsuru responded by saying Tetsuhiko's intuition was just as sharp as people said, and he was right. Tetsuhiko had a general grasp of the situation, but what he really wanted to know was why Mitsuru would willingly take on that role. Mitsuru explained that his relationship with Shirakusa was like that of siblings. He had known for a long time that Shirakusa had feelings for Shuei Haru. Even though she couldn't see him, her feelings were strong enough that she dreamed of making Sueharu fall in love with her, only to reject him afterward. That's what Shirakusa once told Mitsuru. He also shared that Shirakusa had tried giving Sueharu hints about her feelings, but he never made a move. While she was frustrated by that, Kuroha ended up confessing to Sueharu first. Even though Shirakusa felt relieved that Sueharu didn't accept Kuroha's confession, she couldn't let her guard down because of how close the two were. In the middle of that emotional mess, Shirakusa got caught up in the moment and lied, saying she was dating Mitsuru. Tetsuhiko thought she could have just cleared things up right away, but Mitsuru explained that Shirakusa once told him that taking back what she said would feel like admitting defeat. That's when Tetsuhiko finally understood why Mitsuru played the bad guy and took all the hate. Meanwhile, Shirakusa was still trying to get closer to Sueharu. Tetsuhiko couldn't understand why Mitsuru would go through all that when there was nothing to gain. But Mitsuru said there was something in it for him. He was a huge fan of Sueharu, the genius child actor. He said he didn't mind being hated if it meant helping Sueharu get back on stage someday. Tetsuhiko was surprised to realize just how kind Mitsuru actually was. According to Mitsuru, while Shirakusa was amazing, it was Kuroha's persistence that broke through to Sueharu in just a month and a half. Tetsuhiko then asked if that meant Mitsuru thought Kuroha would be the one to win in the end. But Mitsuru said everyone had lost big time. Then he invited Tetsuhiko to go check on Kuroha. They found her sitting alone, calling Sueharu an idiot. Tetsuhiko realized she was full of regret. He said Kuroha clearly liked Sueharu and had finally confessed to him, but because she had been rejected once before, she couldn't bring herself to accept his feelings this time. So she ended up turning him down, only to be left reflecting on it afterward. Something similar was happening with Shirakusa too. She had wanted the guy she loved to confess to her so she could turn him down, but in the end, no one ended up in a relationship. Tetsuhiko thought it was such a ridiculous ending to the story. Mitsuru said it all came down to emotions that were hard to control. Still, he was sure that both Kuroha and Shirakusa had genuine, honest feelings. Tetsuhiko and Mitsuru could understand it. After all, first love always felt like a curse. Meanwhile, Sueharu was still deep in thought, crying over everything that had happened. He couldn't understand why it all turned out the way it did, especially why Kuroha, who he knew had feelings for him, couldn't accept his love in return.